All right, let's jump right in. Today we're doing a deep dive into Mark 14.
Ooh, Mark 14.
Yeah. One of the most, I don't know about you, but one of the most emotionally intense chapters, I think, in the entire Bible.
Yeah, for sure.
So we've got a whole stack of sources here, historical analyses,
Right.
theological interpretations, even some psychological perspectives.
Oh, wow.
All kind of focused on this really pivotal moment
Yeah.
in the story of Jesus. And to me, it's like this powder keg of drama,
Yeah.
intrigue, and then these really deep questions about faith and human nature.
You know, it's interesting how Mark 14 kind of operates on these multiple levels, right?
Yeah.
Like on the surface,
Right.
it's a chronicle of the events leading up to the crucifixion. Like you've got a plot against him, this surprising anointing,
Yeah.
a final meal with the disciples.
Right.
But like under the surface, it's grappling with these profound themes of like
Yes.
loyalty and betrayal and like the cost of discipleship.
Oh, absolutely. And it just pulls you right in.
Yeah.
It's hard to read this chapter and not get swept up in it. Absolutely. So let's set the stage a little bit. We're in Jerusalem. It's Passover.
Okay.
Tensions are already running high.
Of course.
And you've got the authorities. They are nervous about Jesus and his growing popularity.
Mm-hmm.
And they're even hesitant to arrest him publicly
Right.
because they're afraid of a riot. So it makes you wonder, was it really just about crowd control?
Oh.
Or were there kind of deeper political anxieties going on?
That's a good question. You have to remember, this is a very politically charged environment, right?
Right.
You've got the Roman Empire's in control.
Right.
And then the Jewish religious leaders are kind of trying to maintain this balance of power.
Right.
And then you've got Jesus, who comes in with this very radical message.
Yes.
And his growing following,
Mm-hmm.
and disrupts that whole balance.
Yes.
He challenges their authority, their interpretation of the law,
Mm-hmm.
even their understanding of God.
Yeah. So he's a threat to the status quo, religiously and politically.
Exactly.
Yeah, makes sense.
And Mark really highlights that tension right away. He shows us these authorities, they're scheming, right?
Right.
They're actively trying to get rid of Jesus.
Yeah.
And they know that they can't just seize him openly.
Mm.
They've got to be more strategic, more calculating about it.
And then, in the middle of all of this political maneuvering,
Yeah.
we have this scene with the woman
Oh, yeah.
who anoints Jesus with this incredibly expensive oil.
Yeah.
Like, ridiculously expensive.
It's ridiculously expensive.
It's such a grand gesture.
Yeah.
But it also sparks outrage, right?
It seems.
Some people are furious, and they're saying that this oil could have been sold and the money given to the poor.
Yeah, it's this fascinating clash of values, right?
Right.
Like, on the one hand, you've got that very pragmatic argument for practical charity,
Yeah.
helping those in need, giving to the poor.
Yes.
But then on the other hand, you have this extravagant act of devotion,
Yes.
something that transcends material value.
Yes, and to me, it just raises the question of how do we measure the worth of an action? Is it about that immediate, tangible outcome? Or is there room for these kinds of symbolic gestures that express something deeper?
Yeah, it's a dilemma we still grapple with today.
Oh, absolutely.
And then, Mark adds another layer to this.
Oh,
By having Jesus actually defend the woman,
yeah,
he says she's done a beautiful thing, and it foreshadows his burial.
right.
It's almost like he's elevating this act of devotion to a spiritual level
Yeah,
and connecting it to his own impending sacrifice.
that's a really good point.
And it's also important to remember that anointing with oil had a lot of cultural significance back then.
Oh, sure.
It wasn't just about perfume or fragrance.
Mhm.
It was like a ritual act,
Yes.
often associated with kings and prophets.
Oh, that's a really good point. So by defending her, Jesus is also making a statement about his own identity.
Yeah.
Right. His role as the Messiah.
Precisely. He's subverting expectations, challenging those traditional notions of power and authority.
And he's doing it through these everyday interactions.
Exactly.
It's really interesting. It's like each scene is a microcosm of the larger conflict brewing.
That's a great way to put it.
And that conflict takes an even darker turn
Oh, yeah.
with Judas.
Oh, yeah.
We go from this extravagant act of love and devotion
Right.
to the ultimate act of betrayal.
Yes.
Judas agrees to hand Jesus over to the authorities for money.
Ugh, it's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking, and it raises so many questions.
Yes.
Was it purely greed that motivated Judas? Or was there something else going on there?
Right.
Resentment, disillusion? I mean, I've even seen interpretations where Judas is hoping to force Jesus's hand,
Yeah.
to trigger some kind of messianic uprising against Rome.
There are all sorts of possibilities.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Mark doesn't really give us a lot of insight into Judas's inner world.
Yeah.
which makes his betrayal even more chilling. You know, it really speaks to the human capacity for darkness.
Right.
The potential for even our closest companions to turn against us.
It's a sobering thought, isn't it?
Absolutely.
That even within that inner circle of Jesus's disciples, that betrayal was lurking.
Yeah, it makes you think, who can you really trust?
Oh, yeah.
And that sense of uncertainty, that foreboding, it just intensifies as we move towards the Last Supper.
Right.
Because Jesus gathers with his disciples for this final meal, knowing that one of them is going to betray him.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
That weight of that knowledge.
Be the tension in that room.
Yeah, so heavy.
Yeah, and yet in the middle of this impending betrayal and his own impending death,
right,
Jesus establishes a ritual that continues to this day.
Yes.
Communion.
Communion.
He takes bread, breaks it, and says, "This is my body."
Powerful.
He takes wine and says, "This is my blood."
Powerful words.
These words that have echoed through centuries, you know, shaping Christian practice and theology.
It's incredible, isn't it, how this simple meal, shared in this moment of profound crisis, becomes like the foundation for this central sacrament in Christian tradition. It speaks to the enduring power of ritual, the way symbolic acts connect us across time and space.
And it's not just about the ritual itself, right?
Yeah.
It's about the deeper meaning.
Exactly.
Jesus is offering himself, his very being, for the sake of others.
Powerful.
It's this act of self-sacrifice that transcends that immediate moment and speaks to a deeper spiritual reality.
It does, and it's all the more poignant because it's happening right there in the shadow of betrayal.
Yeah.
You know, in the face of impending suffering.
It's heavy stuff.
It is, but it's a testament to that depth of Jesus' love.
Yeah.
And his commitment to his mission.
Yeah, so we've got this potent mix of emotions, right?
Oh, yeah.
Love, betrayal, sacrifice.
It's all swirling around in this one chapter.
Yeah, and it's just going to get more intense from here.
Oh, yeah.
So buckle up because Mark 14 is about to take us on a roller coaster ride.
Definitely a roller coaster.
Through those darkest hours leading up to the crucifixion.
Absolutely. So we left off with that Last Supper, this moment of profound connection, but also with this kind of unsettling knowledge of betrayal hanging over it all.
Yeah.
And from here, the tension in Mark 14 just keeps escalating.
Yeah.
As Jesus and the disciples head to the Garden of Gethsemane.
It's become such an iconic place, right?
Absolutely.
It's almost mythical. It's where we see Jesus really wrestling with his fate, praying for that cup of suffering to pass.
Yeah.
It's just such a raw, vulnerable moment.
Yeah, it really reveals that human side of Jesus.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, that's where they really connect.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the Son of God facing the full weight of what's to come. Betrayal, torture, execution.
Yeah.
And he's struggling with it. He's in anguish. He's pleading with God for another way.
And it's such a powerful reminder that even in our moments of deepest despair, even when we feel so overwhelmed and afraid, you know, it's okay to cry out.
Of course.
To question, to seek comfort and guidance.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is that he doesn't get this simple, comforting answer right.
Right. There's no divine intervention. There's no angel swooping down to take that cup away.
There's this profound silence, almost a sense of abandonment that he feels.
Yeah, and yet he chooses to surrender to God's will.
He does.
Not what I will, but what you will.
Powerful.
Such a moment of profound acceptance.
Yeah.
Of yielding to a purpose greater than himself.
It's interesting because, you know, Gethsemane often gets portrayed as a place of weakness.
Right, of Jesus breaking down under pressure.
Yeah, but to me it also feels like a place of immense strength.
Yes.
The strength to choose surrender.
Yes.
To embrace a path that leads to suffering, knowing that it's for the greater good.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. It's not about passive resignation. It's about actively choosing to align yourself with a higher purpose.
Yeah.
Even when it's so difficult.
Even when it's incredibly difficult.
And it's a choice that's immediately tested.
Oh, yeah.
Because no sooner does Jesus finish praying than Judas shows up with this armed mob ready to arrest him.
Talk about betrayal. That is swift and brutal.
It is.
And that image of Judas identifying Jesus with a kiss.
Yeah.
It's just chilling.
Bro, it's chilling.
It's a gesture of love twisted into this act of betrayal. Speaks to those depths of deception, the violation of trust.
It's almost Shakespearean, the way Mark sets up that contrast.
Yeah.
The intimacy of the kiss against that cold, hard reality of betrayal.
It's like he's showing us this whole spectrum of human experience.
Yeah.
The heights of love and the depths of treachery.
All within a few verses.
Exactly. And then in all the chaos of the arrest, we get another glimpse of human frailty.
Right.
The disciples scatter, they're afraid, they're confused.
Yeah, they don't know what to do.
They don't know what to do. And Peter, the one who swore he would never abandon Jesus, denies him 3 times.
3 times.
Just as Jesus predicted.
It's like that rooster crowing in the background.
Yeah.
It's this constant reminder of those broken promises.
Right, when he realizes what he's done.
Oh, the weight of that betrayal just hits him like a ton of bricks.
Mark tells us that he broke down and wept.
Just a raw human moment.
It is. You've got Peter, who just hours earlier was so bold and confident, now reduced to tears of shame and remorse.
It's a reminder that even the most devoted followers can stumble.
Absolutely.
They can make choices they later regret.
They do.
But it also shows us the power of recognizing our mistakes, owning up to our failings. Peter's weeping. It's a sign of genuine remorse.
Yeah.
It's that first step towards seeking forgiveness and reconciliation.
It is. And, while Peter's wrestling with his guilt, Jesus is facing his accusers.
Yeah.
Mark takes us inside the trial before the high priest.
Right.
Where Jesus is bombarded with these false accusations.
Yeah.
Outright mockery.
It's almost absurd.
It is. It's almost absurd.
How flimsy their case against him is.
Yeah, witnesses contradict each other.
Right.
Their testimonies fall apart.
But the authorities are determined to find something, anything to use against him.
It shows how threatened they felt by him.
Yeah.
How desperate they were to silence him.
And they're not even interested in truth or justice, are they?
Not really. They've already made up their minds.
Yeah.
They just need a pretext to condemn him.
It's like a political show trial.
It is.
Just designed to eliminate a perceived threat.
Exactly. And then comes that pivotal moment.
Okay.
The high priest asks Jesus directly, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of God?"
And Jesus, even knowing the danger, doesn't hesitate.
Doesn't hesitate.
He answers with a resounding, "I am."
Powerful. A declaration of his true identity.
It is.
This bold affirmation of his divine authority.
It seals his fate.
It does.
The high priest is outraged.
Of course.
Accuses him of blasphemy and calls for his death.
It's a moment of high drama.
Yeah.
That clash of ideologies that has these profound consequences.
It's like watching a train wreck in slow motion.
Yeah. You know it's coming.
But you can't stop it.
And it's not just the verbal condemnation.
Right.
It's the physical abuse that follows.
Oh, yeah.
Mark describes people spitting on Jesus.
Yeah.
Blindfolding him, striking him, mocking him relentlessly.
It's brutal.
It is.
It's dehumanizing.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to erase his dignity.
Yeah.
To break him completely.
It's a stark reminder of the depths of human cruelty.
Yeah.
The way fear and hatred can twist even the most basic sense of compassion.
And yet, even in the midst of this horrific ordeal, there's this glimmer of hope.
Oh.
Remember that young man wearing only a linen cloth who tries to follow Jesus after the arrest?
Yeah.
He's quickly apprehended. And in that moment of panic, he flees naked.
Yeah.
Leaving his garment behind.
That scene always stuck with me. It's so strange and unexpected.
It is. What do you make of it?
I don't know. It's open to interpretation, but some scholars see it as this symbol of the cost of discipleship. This young man, stripped bare, vulnerable, fleeing for his life. It represents that potential for persecution, the sacrifices that come with following Jesus.
Right, like he's a stand-in for all those who will be persecuted for their faith, who will be forced to make those difficult choices, who will risk everything for the sake of their beliefs.
And it also highlights that contrast, between those who flee out of fear and those who stand firm in their convictions.
While the disciples scatter, while Peter denies his Lord.
Yeah.
This young man, even in his vulnerability, shows a willingness to stand with Jesus, even for a brief moment.
Yeah.
It's this powerful image of courage and commitment.
It is.
In the face of just overwhelming adversity.
Man, we've been unpacking this incredibly intense chapter, Mark 14.
It is intense.
And, I'm just struck by what an emotional roller coaster it is.
It really is.
We've seen incredible displays of devotion and then just gut-wrenching betrayals.
Yeah.
And now, as we're kind of approaching the end of this chapter, we're left with this image of Jesus beaten and mocked, facing certain death.
Yeah.
And it's heavy.
It's heavy.
It's heavy stuff.
It is. But even amidst all of that darkness, Mark kind of weaves in these subtle hints of hope.
Okay.
These hints that something greater is unfolding.
Yeah.
We talked about that young man, fleeing naked is a symbol of the vulnerability and sacrifice that comes with following Jesus.
Right.
But there's this other detail I find really striking. Right before Jesus is led away to be crucified, Mark tells us that a rooster crows.
Wait, a rooster? Didn't we already hear that when Peter denied Jesus?
Yes. Mark deliberately repeats that detail. It's like an echo, a reminder of Peter's failure.
Right.
But it also kind of takes on a new meaning in this context.
Okay.
Because you see, in Jewish tradition, the rooster crowing often symbolizes the dawn.
Oh.
The coming of a new day.
So it's not just a reminder of Peter's betrayal. It's also foreshadowing something new about to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It suggests that even in this moment of utter defeat, even as Jesus is condemned to death, there's this glimmer of hope, a promise of something transformative on the horizon.
That's really interesting.
Like the darkness is about to give way to light.
It makes me think about how we often focus on the crucifixion as this end point.
Yeah.
Culmination of suffering.
Right.
But it seems like Mark is pointing us beyond that, towards something more.
He is. Mark 14 is just the beginning of the story.
Right.
It sets the stage for what follows. The crucifixion, the resurrection, the birth of the Christian church.
So in a way, it's a chapter about endings and beginnings.
Exactly. It's about the end of one era and the dawn of a new one.
Wow.
And it's about that enduring power of faith and love.
Yeah.
To triumph even in the face of unimaginable loss and suffering.
It's amazing how this one chapter can pack in so much meaning.
It really is.
So many layers of interpretation.
So many layers.
As we wrap up this deep dive into Mark 14, what stands out to you as the most important takeaway?
That's a great question. For me, I think it's that reminder that even in those darkest of times, even when we feel abandoned, betrayed, hope is never truly extinguished.
Yeah.
Mark 14 shows us that full range of human emotion.
Yeah.
Fear, doubt, betrayal, but also courage, love, sacrifice.
Right.
And it invites us to grapple with those same emotions in our own lives.
That's so true. And it challenges us to confront our own capacity for both darkness and light. To wrestle with those complexities of faith and the meaning of true discipleship.
It does.
It's not a tidy story with easy answers.
No, it's not.
But it's a story that continues to resonate centuries later.
It does.
Prompting us to ask those tough questions about who we are and what we believe in.
And, it reminds us that even when faced with these seemingly insurmountable obstacles, even when we feel surrounded by darkness, there's always a possibility for transformation, for renewal, for the dawn of a new day.
It's a powerful message, one that I think we all need to hear sometimes.
We do.
So for all of you listening out there, we hope this deep dive into Mark 14 has given you some food for thought, some new insights into this really pivotal chapter.
Yeah.
And we encourage you to continue exploring these themes and these questions in your own lives.
Absolutely.
Who knows what you might discover?